A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 119th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. For the last over a year, because they started back in April 2020, we at Notebook have had the privilege of hosting these webinars where we have brought together the entire school education community across international borders to discuss a myriad range of topics that was affecting school education, especially during this pandemic. Well, students were stuck at home and schooling had to go on. Most schools adopted various forms of online learning. Zoom was quickly coming to the fore, and therefore we decided this webinar will not only help teachers discuss and understand solutions to the problems that they were facing, but also provide them a more hands-on experience of the Zoom platform. Well, today we discuss a topic that is perhaps every single argument to the contrary: screen fatigue. As we have been stuck at home, the screens around us have often been our only connection to the outer world. Whether it's watching a series on your favorite OTT platform, or a student studying on a mobile device, or even those online exams taken through Moodle or some other platform on some laptop, screens have become a huge part of our lives. And like all good things, too much of it is never good. Well, a certain degree of fatigue has definitely set in. Today, we are going to look at the various causes, the implications, and some possible solutions to this particular problem. To discuss this, our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. He served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. And we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you, Shabayu. I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, interesting topic. I don't know where to start, but I will say that today's kids have been used to screen time for a very long time. Even before the pandemic started, they would be on videos, laptops, TVs, social media platforms. And, one cannot imagine their lives without some sort of screen or gadget. Even if you look at us elders who did not grow up with these gadgets, what would we do without them? With online banking, booking tickets, ordering food, taxis, merchandise on Amazon, so many things. Here, the handset has become an alarm clock, a diary, a filing cabinet, a torch, mailing service, phone, photo album, calendar, etc. So I think the future is not that we do without screens. I don't think that's possible, but it's how we use it. Now, in the last 2 years, a lot of our students have been glued to the screen for almost 4 hours a day, doing homework and online classes. But what they really have missed out on is the physical activities that usually are interspersed with classes in a normal school. It is these activities like drama, play, chatting, eating together that actually breaks the monotony and revives some of that fatigue and tiredness. A little deviation from the screen is all they need. Now, the problem is that in the years to come, I worry about their backs, their necks, their obesity, also the mental issues of depression, feeling of emptiness, feeling of boredom, a sense of fear of the unknown, losing a parent or grandparent, fear of getting ill oneself. So fatigue shows up in a number of ways. And when we are fatigued, we're not the best versions of ourselves. And so many little niggling emotional issues will come out to the fore when we are fatigued. Sometimes I feel the very concept, of time seems to have been lost. If you ask a kid how many hours they've spent watching television or on their laptops today, they won't have an answer to that. They have no idea of how long they've gone. They're out of touch with reality. Now, initially, when schools closed down in 2020 by March, kids loved it. There was a novelty about online classes. But today, 18 to 20 months later, this repetitive online classes and the droning on the teacher's voice even the teachers are tired. And this has now led to a kind of boredom and ennui, a sort of a tiredness, emotional, physical. And they're dying to get back to class, they're dying to get back to school. Now, normally, I'd say ideally, research shows that 1 to 2 hours a day for young children is over. But they're doing over 4 times that, glued to a television or a laptop. My little daughter has 4 hours of classes. That's followed by 1 hour of coding. That's followed by music classes, even though the teacher comes home. Then there's drama and dance online. And at the end of all that, she does want to relax watching her series, her TVs, and in the social media to chat with her friends. And so where does she ever get off the iPhone, the iPad? Now, we must not forget that there is a great positive sides to screen watching and the digital media, which has kept children going these last almost 2 years. And otherwise, we would have had a generation of unschooled children. Also, keeping abreast with news, current affairs, the Olympics that are now around the corner is very important. The problem is that, there has to be a balance. And also parents, one of the greatest problems parents face now, and I talk to many parents, is how do we instill a sense of discipline and how do we bring in rules for our children to resist watching the screen all the time. And there's a lot of pressure from the children. And the parents, they succumb to this pressure. And when the child looks up to them, mournfully, full of sadness, Papa, what else can I do? I'm tied up here at home. Parents tend to relent. They give in. There is hardly any parenting going on. Screen time has led to too much screen time has led to a lack of communication. Also made people selfish. They listen to their music privately, unlike us who listen to the music that was, the whole family listened to it. We spoke about it. Even video watching is each one in the family is on his own little laptop. There is no time for chatting. There's no time for releasing that energy, chatting, the horseplay, the games, the Monopoly and the chess and the Scrabble that we had, So it's also led to a lot of emotional and behavioral problems. Children are aggressive these days. Also educational problems because they cannot communicate with their teachers. I don't know how much real learning has gone on. I mean, they are doing the syllabus, they're passing their little assignments. But when real physical classes start, I wonder what will happen if a teacher gets a class that says, I haven't learned a thing, I'm zero. So there are educational problems. Health problems are enormous. Again, obesity and health issues, back, eyes, neck, and type 2 diabetes in young children, juvenile pre-diabetes is on the rise. When you're fatigued and you're emotionally upset, you overeat. You compensate by eating too much. It's called depressional eating. So altering of brain functions and cognitive issues. So the dopamine that kicks in when you're on the screen, it tickles the habit forming part of the brain. Kids are slow to pick up language skills, reading skills. And with too much radiation coming through the 5G now and Wi-Fi all around them, are we doing them any good physically? There is impaired social skills. They're not talking to people. They don't know how to converse. There's also a lack of emotional judgment. They cannot process the emotions that they read off other people. And as I said, there's so much violence and sex on screen that they watch when they're relaxing, that's after classes. And of course, sleep problems. Too much blue light from the screen, it has been shown it affects sleep, and sleeping late for children over years and years of it will grossly affect their health later on. And the next morning when they have to switch on for online classes, they are groggy. Also in children, anger, deep-seated anger shows up in many ways, sadness. And I can tell you that a lot of children, through this fatigue and anger, come across as sad human beings. It also harms family relationships. In my last school, which was traditionally known for seniors mentoring and helping younger students when they had their free time, that changed with the coming of laptops. Every senior was glued to his laptop, and what happened was the juniors got absolutely neglected. And that tradition that we had of the buddy system, the mentorship that went from senior to junior, was lost with the seniors glued to their individual screens. There's also a great amount of lowering of self-esteem without interacting with people. I find that a lot of children are not honing their skills and their passions. They feel left out. They're not finding new experiences. And this leads to low self-identity and confidence. And it shows up as fatigue, physical fatigue. I think there's also an information overload. They're bombarded with so much information without the adult telling them what's the scope of the subject, how much do you really need to know? And then, of course, not to mention the dangers of cyberbullying and pornography, because just like any other addiction, screen addiction gets more and more. We crave for more and more. So what is 3 hours today becomes 4 hours down the line. So this again is because of the dopamine rush. And also I find that there's a lot of zooming out due to boredom and fatigue. There is no motivation. And so they just have nothing else to do but to flip through those programs. But how do we tackle this as teachers and adults? I think at the family level, we need to set family rules. We need to draw boundaries and set times, sometimes non-negotiable. We need to encourage healthy, positive activities as substitutes, cooking, exercise, music, doing things with the family. Now that the lockdowns are not so draconic, we need to establish rules about no devices at meal times. At family nights, no devices in the car, no devices in the bedroom. We need to do a day of digital detox for our children, where they go without devices. Too much of a good thing is also bad. And I think children need to be counseled, not only by the school counselor, but by us, by family members. I think getting involved with healthy pursuits is the answer to detoxing screen time and to rejuvenate ourselves. The strain of screen overload is not only affecting students, but also teachers who have to be on their gadgets, not only to hold classes, but also to prepare for those classes, to assess those classes. And my heart goes out to teachers who over these last 18 months have been locked down, and they've lost so much of their privacy, so much of their emotional strength and well-being has been dissipated. Now, while there are so many plus points to learning on gadgets and screens, this does not come, as I said earlier, at the loss of emotional and physical health. And therefore, a fine balance between screen time and outdoor pursuits, meeting friends, spending time, has to be struck. In the end, one must remember that screens and gadgets are double-edged swords. Doing online classes, working on a project and research are good, great. At the same time, we need to tell them what is brain fog, what is fatigue, and we as elders have to inculcate a balance between what is healthy watching and what is just, flipping through, zooming out and becoming zombies with their devices. And with that, Sabayu, I want to hand this over to you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for exploring all those wonderful different angles to what today's screen fatigue is like. Although you did remind me that we have an Olympics on the way, and I must congratulate everyone here on our first silver medal today. Mirabai Chanu did a brilliant job, almost got to the gold, very close to an Olympic record. And hopefully In the next few days, there'll be more medals coming in. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to meet our second speaker. Our second speaker today is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which has been a subject of debate and discourse in academic corridors across the globe. Now, as the founder of an edtech brand, not only do I want to know what is and what isn't working with my product, I also want to stay up to date on edtech trends globally. I need to be well versed in the buzzwords of the moment and understand them deeply. Now, one common term that we are all hearing these days is screen fatigue. And I decided to take a deeper look. Now, it's well known that screens weren't recommended for very young children. In 2016, the American Academy of Pediatrics advised that for children over 6, adults use judgment and place consistent limits. Studies warn of the potential for negative impact of too much screen time. Now, a few years ago, researchers asked, in our digital world, and this question is very important. The question was, which came out from a research, that in our digital world, are young people losing the ability to read emotions? And the answer, as we all know, yes, they are. For many, that conclusion may seem alarmist, but for others, it's a real concern. Now, fast forward this to June, when EdSurge shared that tired edtech brands that teachers wish would retire, among them blended learning. Some even said that edtech is potentially creating a system where kids are going to sit in their little silos and go through their little teacher playlist and never see another human being all day. Now, at Notebook, me and my team believe that we should work towards pedagogies that celebrate teachers, celebrate human interactions, and use technology as a vehicle. So as an edtech founder, I have been pondering these sentiments and asking myself how we can actually accomplish this. Here are a few thoughts that I've come up with, which I wanted to share with all of you. First and foremost, I believe edtech should engage but not addict. Learning is fun and exciting, and technology should reflect that. So we all agree that it has the advantages of generally being more engaging than a dusty textbook, especially since today's students are digital natives. But the goal shouldn't be to keep students in front of screen playing games, even if they're educational, all day, every day. So we all know that fresh air does a growing child good. Now, I remember Kristen Harris, whom the Atlantic dubbed the closest thing Silicon Valley has to conscience, explained tech's ability to addict, noting that there are 1,000 people on the other side of the screen whose job is to break down whatever responsibility I can maintain. So this focus on dominating the attention economy must stay out of edtech's learning economy. Now, Harris wants product designers to adopt a Hippocratic oath for software that he explains would check the practice of exposing people's psychological vulnerabilities. Now, the edtech industry may not be a place where we need to promise not to design tools that extract maximum attention for kids. Yes, we want them to give attention. But if the developers continue to try building the next Instagram or Snapchat for learning, we should hold ourselves to higher standards. Second, I think the other thing which is very important is, so first, as I told you that, it should not be addictive. Second thing which I think is very important is add off-screen learning extension. And I'll give you an example. See, the way I look at it, tech tools can serve as a great way to introduce offline content. They can be a means to a teacher-led end. For example, at Notebook, teachers often use our audiovisual content for the first 8 to 10 minutes of a class. Say a class which now, of course, is being held online over Zoom or any other streaming platform. So for the first 8 to 10 minutes, to get students into a study mode, especially after lunch, maybe. So at times, these methods allow each student to work when they're ready and at his or her own pace, while grounding the class and getting everyone on the same figurative page. And when teachers use content related to the main lesson during this warm-up, it serves as a digital hook for what students are about to learn offline. So to further address screen fatigue, we are planning to develop, and we have been discussing this internally as a team, and we look forward to your thoughts on this. We have been planning to develop topic channel on our site that entices students to read literature offline by offering the first few pages or first chapter of a book, maybe online. Objective will be to make students head to the library to search for the book they started reading on our website. Third, I think the other thing which is very important is building tech products that are hands-on and not behind screen. So EdTech is often immediately associated with tablets, mobile devices, computers, but that leaves many important tools out. Now, technology that's educational can also be offline. Take, for example, I was reading about a brand, SolarOne, a New York City company that teachers are raving about. Now, this company offers students hands-on activities involving offline technology, like batteries and electricity, so that they can learn about tech experientially. Now, such programs are crucial to developing the EdTech developers of tomorrow. And as educators, you know best that students love the lessons that allow them to get their hands dirty. The other thing I think very important is staying open-minded and agile. Now, concerned parents and teachers are onto something that tech titans know. Steve Jobs didn't allow his children to use iPad and others famously send their kids to schools without screen. So one day, if you remember, in this forum, we were discussing about a school in Silicon Valley which doesn't use screens. But this trend hasn't spread. It has been confined to a few pockets. Schools getting rid of screen-based tech is highly unlikely, since that would be like throwing the EdTech baby out with bathwater. It doesn't make any sense if you think of things in a more democratic, holistic manner, and if you look at schools around the country. There's a lot of good work that technology can provide, and we would all agree, be it the ability to individualize and work at each student's pace. So when you're working with a student one-on-one, but if 30 or 40 other students are calling out with hands raised, it can be hard not to rush for any educator. So getting rid of EdTech isn't the solution, but being mindful of its potential detriment to human interaction and teacher impact can be. Now, we all agree that in our society, we have highly trained, committed educators in our classrooms, and we shouldn't miss out on their skills by just plopping students in front of our teachers' playlist. There's a lot that we still don't know about EdTech and the impact of screen-based learning. Recently, Education Week summarized a research saying what we don't know outweighs what we do know about how people comprehend text on a digital screen rather than on the printed page. This means that we as developers and educators have to keep our ears to the ground and be ready to adjust course accordingly. Now, earlier I said that when we discuss about edtech, we were discussing about tablets, mobiles, laptop. But now, when you think of edtech, please picture a paper and a pencil, because that's all edtech really is, an instrument for instruction. EdTech in and of itself isn't effective, innovative, or even cool. It's just another tool educators can use to support learning. So we discussed about one aspect of today's topic, aspect which of course concerns students the most. But when we discuss about a topic like screen fatigue, I think all of us are under the purview, even adults. So today, if we discuss about something like a Zoom gloom, so we all know that humans communicate even when they're quiet. During an in-person conversation, the brain focuses partially on the words being spoken, but it also derives additional meaning from dozens of non-verbal cues, such as whether someone is facing you or slightly turned away, if they are fidgeting while you're talking, or if they inhale quickly in preparation to interrupt. Now, these cues help paint a holistic picture of what is being conveyed and what's expected in response from the listener. Since humans evolved as social animals, perceiving these cues comes naturally to most of us. Takes little conscious effort to, and even lay a groundwork for emotional intimacy. However, in today's scenario, if you look at interactions over a video call, a typical video call impairs these ingrained abilities and requires sustained and intense attention to words instead. If a person is framed only from the shoulders up, the possibility of viewing hand gestures or other body language is eliminated. If the video quality is poor, which very often we all face, any hope of gleaning something from minute facial expression is dashed. Now, for somebody who's really dependent on those non-verbal cues, it can be a big drain not to have them. Prolonged eye contact has become the strongest facial cue readily available, and it can feel threatening or overly intimate if held too long. Multi-person screens magnify this exhausting problem. So we all know, gallery view, where all meeting participants appear Brady Bunch style, challenges the brain's central vision, forcing it to decode so many people at once that no one comes through meaningfully, not even the speaker. We are engaged in numerous activities, but never fully devoting ourselves to focus on anything in particular. Psychologists call this continuous partial attention, and it applies as much to virtual environments as it does to real ones. Now, think of how hard it would be to say book and read at the same time. That's the kind of multitasking your brain is trying and often failing to navigate in a group video chat. Now, this leads to problems in which group video chats become less collaborative and more like siloed panels, in which only two people at a time talk while the rest listen. Because each participant is using one audio stream and is aware of all the other videos, parallel conversations are impossible. So if you view a single speaker at a time, you can't recognize how non-active participants are behaving, something you would normally pick up with peripheral vision in a physical conversation. For some people, the prolonged split in attention creates a perplexing sense of being drained while having accomplished nothing. So naturally, the brain becomes overwhelmed by unfamiliar expressions. So it's like unfamiliar stimuli, while being hyper-focused on searching for non-verbal cues that it can't find. It's actually very exhausting. That's why a traditional phone call may be less taxing on the brain, because it delivers on a small promise to convey only a voice. But when we discuss this, I think it's only fair to look at things from a 360-degree perspective. So the positive side of it, I'll say the Zoom boon by contrast. So the sudden shift to video calls has been a boon for people who have, for instance, neurological difficulty with in-person exchanges, such as those with autism, who can become overwhelmed by multiple people talking. So I was reading about John, an editor at the New Jersey-based news outlet Climate Central, who recently found out that he is autistic. Late last year, he was struggling with the mental load of attending packed conferences, engaging during in-person meeting, and navigating the small talk. At times it's very stressful if you are not too social. So navigating the small talk, that's common in workplaces. He says that these experiences cause an ambiguous tension, a form of anxiety. So no matter what, it's worthwhile cause to lessen screen time and increase the time, undoubtedly, like the activities like experiencing nature, board games, hobbies. Now, we all agree that day full of video meetings are more exhausting than in-person meetings. At a very basic level, we have to focus more to absorb information during virtual meetings. And it's easier to get distracted. I think that's the most important part. While also harder to make connections with colleagues or friends. So when we discuss about screen fatigue, so there's also a term called Zoom fatigue. So more or less, I'll say they're same apart from few specifics. But screen fatigue, also known as eye strain. So there's a term called computer vision syndrome or computer-related eye fatigue. So you read about it, various medical organizations all around. So it's about continuous strain on the eyes. Some few, I think, very practical recommendations. I think that 20-20-20 rule that I actually follow. After 20 minutes of screen time, I always try, although at times, to be very honest, I do miss out, looking out of the window at a distance of 20 feet for 20 seconds and repeat. That gives our eyes the opportunity to relax. Also, I think it's important to blink more often because at times we do, when you continuously look at screen, the eyes become dry and people are so engrossed in the work, they do forget to blink. It takes time and eyes become dry. Also adjusting your computer's display setting to make it more soothing to your eyes, adjusting the brightness, adjusting aspects like text size and contrast, not to give too much of stress on the eyes. And also something called color temperature. So color temperature, this is like a technical term used to describe spectrum of visible light emitted by a color display. So blue light is short wavelength visible light that is associated with more eye strain than longer wavelength such as orange and red. Reducing the color temperature of your display lowers the amount of blue light emitted by a color display for better long-time viewing comfort. So these are two things that I wanted to share. And I sincerely thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We do have a wonderful panel here today, and I really look forward to the deliberation on this topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for the wonderful presentation and getting into the science of what causes eye strain. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a fantastic panel lined up for you today. Before that, just a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech organization where we create short, crisp videos that pertain to the school curriculum. Well, the videos are short because we want to reduce the screen fatigue as well. These short videos fit into your classroom schedule because you can now play these videos as an introduction to any topic that you're about to teach. This gives your students a more visual understanding of what you're about to explain. Months later, when the students have to go back and revise or remember what you taught in class that day, they can access those same videos on their personal devices, whether it's a laptop or a smartphone. These videos help them remember what you taught and also quickly revise the topic. I'm going to play a short clip of one of the Notebook videos so that you know exactly what it is I'm going on about.
Hello and welcome to Notebook. We will be talking about a very important chapter from your syllabus, which is force and pressure. Before that, let us go back to the 17th century. In 1650, a German scientist by the name of Otto von Guericke invented a pump to extract air out of a vessel to create partial vacuum. His studies reveal that light travels through vacuum but sound does not. In 1654, at Regensburg, he performed a famous series of experiments in front of Emperor Ferdinand III. He joined two hollow metallic hemispheres of 51 centimeter diameter made of copper to form a sphere. Then he sucked out all the air from the sphere using a suction pump to create a vacuum. The two bowls were then held together only due to atmospheric pressure. Then he tried to separate the two bowls by getting them pulled apart by a team of 8 super powerful horses on each side. Guess what happened then? The bowls remained held tightly together and did not separate. So great is the force of air pressure that the hemispheres could not be pulled apart. This proved the enormous force of atmospheric pressure. Okay, story time is over. Time to get started with the chapter. To make it easier for you to understand, we have broken down the chapter into small parts, each focusing on a vital topic. In this part of the video, we will be concentrating on force, what it is and its causes. Force. We use this term very commonly in our day-to-day life. But do you know where we use it? Opening a door, riding a bicycle, and lifting a box are some things that we all do in our daily lives, and all these require a force.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short clip of one of the notebook videos. If you head on to our website, www.notebook.school, you would find more than 10,000 such videos with rich illustrations and storytelling that help students learn with greater ease. Besides content, Notebook also conducts events where we help the students and community engage better. This year, we partnered with the IIM Calcutta Innovation Park to conduct Ignite, an international inter-school online innovation and entrepreneurship challenge. We are asking our young learners to act like startups, come up with their own innovative ideas and solutions to world problems that they get to present in front of a jury of experts from IIM CIP and get their feedback. The competition has already started. Yesterday was the inauguration ceremony. And from Monday onwards, we would see some inspired ideas coming from these young minds. I would invite all of you to please join in those events, even if as just a spectator, and inspire our young audience or young students to do better. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to introduce the wonderful, wonderful panel that we have for you today. If you would just give me 1 second. We are very fortunate to have with us today Mrs. Neeru Nair, who is the Regional Schools Director for Z-Learn Limited in Ahmedabad. Mrs. Nair is a skilled and professional school principal with 32 years of experience in management, teaching, and administration of school activities. She successfully managed 100 teaching staff members, 30 non-teaching staff members, and students from nursery to 12th grade. Previously, she worked at Khyati World School, Lady Ratanbai and Sir Mathuradas Visanji Academy, was the founder head of Euro School Surat Campus, founder head of Zydus School for Excellence Ahmedabad, founder principal of Amrita Vidyalayam, and taught at numerous prestigious schools. She was awarded by the Science Olympiad Foundation, the Radhakrishnan Award for Contribution to Education by Avantika, the Mother Teresa Sadbhavna Award by Global Achievers Foundation Delhi, and was adjudged the best principal amongst all Amrita Vidyalayams of the country. Moreover, she's also been a district and state level hockey player and been awarded many certificates for participation in various hockey tournaments at district and state levels, respectively. Ma'am, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. It's a privilege to have you here. We also have with us Mr. Nishesh Kumar Sinha, who is an experienced principal with a demonstrated history of working in the education management industry. He is skilled in educational leadership, strategic planning, teaching, training and development, and education. He himself possesses a strong educational professional with a post-graduation focus in English from Tilka Manjhi Bhagalpur University. He is also the author of Passionate Parenting, a book published in the year 2009 by Saraswati House Publications, New Delhi. Sir, thank you so much for being here today as being a part of this panel. It's a privilege to have you here. We also have with us Mr. Yeshwanth Vasudevan, director of a school and an experienced principal with a demonstrated history of working in the nursery, primary, secondary and senior secondary education industry. He is skilled in e-learning, coaching, classroom management, communication, and lesson planning. He is a strong education professional with a Master's of Education focused in education evaluation and research from Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University. His experience spans 13 years where he started as an English teacher at the AKT Academy Matriculation Higher Secondary School, then went on to SKV Educational Institution, becoming the principal of the SKV Vidyashram, and finally, he's currently the director and principal at KJG School in Ooty, Tamil Nadu. Sir, thank you so much for being here and adding to the stellar panel that we have today. I will stop my share now and start the video so that we can all see each other and have this wonderful discussion. Once again, my heartfelt gratitude and thanks for being a part of this panel. Mr. Vasudevan, I can't see you yet. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Well, my first question is screen fatigue real? We've heard about this being discussed by our other speakers, but here's the thing. We've gone from no mobile learning, where school said we don't want mobiles, to learning that has moved to our mobile phones. So how big of an issue is screen fatigue? Do the benefits outweigh the cost? Mrs. Nair, if you can start with you, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Indeed, it has been a very interesting, interaction in the last 30, 40 minutes. Rather, I would say almost 40 minutes. I've been hearing all of you. And I've been wondering what all our first speaker said. He encompassed everything that probably I wanted to say in a nutshell. Yes, there is a lot of screen fatigue. And if you ask me how, I have endless list to share with you that what all is happening with our students at the moment. Screen fatigue is a very small word. I would rather say that they don't want to have anything to do with online classes at the moment, if you ask. I'll just give you a small example, if you permit me to share. So I have an 18-year-old niece and a 17-year-old nephew who passed out their grade 12, happily in 2020. The first year went by in online classes. They are pursuing a design course from a reputed university in Ahmedabad. And recently they were told that if they are vaccinated, they'll be allowed to visit the college for offline classes. Trust me, the inclination or the inspiration, or I would say the readiness to go to the college was also encompassing that there were endless hours spent on finding out the nearest location to get themselves vaccinated. And the moment they were vaccinated, they made preparations, both of them. They made preparations for what would they wear the first day when they would go to college, what notebooks would they carry, which bottle would they carry, what would they carry for their lunch break, short break, because they were to spend around 7 to 8 hours in the college. And incidentally, I was visiting them that day, and I was astounded to note that there was so much of readiness and so much of eagerness to visit a brick and mortar, setup, rather than sitting in front of the laptop for endless hours. So, and it's been since 2 days that they have been visiting their college, and every evening when I talk to them, there's so much they want to tell me. And in fact, I have to cut them short and I tell them, okay, we'll meet on a weekend and then we'll listen to whatever you've got to say. So yes, there is a lot of skill. If this gives you a bird's eye view of what I'm, trying to tell you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. I will now get across to Mr. Sinha. Sir, you are a child pedagogy expert. Do you think the cost and the benefits are balanced? Do one outweigh the other?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Vayu, for giving such an excellent opportunity to be on this platform and address the viewers today. I have been listening to the speakers, very brilliant, good speakers like Philip, Achin, and now Neeru. The topic which is there so prevalent is the screen fatigue. Before we come to this topic and discuss a few more things about it, I would like to take the viewers to the past pre-COVID situations, wherein adults were literally addicted to the screens. Now we have to think from the children's perspective. What impact does this screen time have thrown onto the lives of children? This is the most important thing that we need to discuss today from this platform. And of course, as you quoted, that I am a child pedagogy expert, I need to look into this very precisely, that this increased screen time has got an adverse impact on the child's mind, or their minds are getting conditioned. But to my mind, what I believe, that for these 2 years almost, rather, when they are into the confinement, there's no other resource and ways to reach out to the children. And hats off to the group of teachers and the leaders like Neeru and others who have been running the show. Reaching out to the children with a precision, and at the same time with all those resources which are required for a natural learning through the screens, is a Herculean task that the teachers have been making. Gradually, what I observed, that the children who have been attending these classes now are accustomed. They were happy earlier also by watching Chhota Bheem or any other beautiful series on the screens, rather. And their addiction, rather, which were termed as addictions by the parents and the teachers, and we always made a hue and cry about it, that children are spending more time with the screens unnecessarily, and they would be impaired, or they would be having a brain impact, or many things like that, the disorders that they would be undergoing. Much more than this screen time, the impact of this COVID-19 situation, because I believe that any crisis that takes place in the country like India, the soft target and the most affected group of people are the children. Right. So the crisis itself is there, having a very adverse impact on the growth, holistic growth of the children. A complete confinement in the room or in the home for such a long period has definitely thrown a lot of threats to their lives, especially in terms of their emotional setback, their social setback, their mental setback, their psychological setback. To a large extent, the behavioral concepts also, the behavioral patterns of the children have undergone a sea change. But only screen is not responsible for all these things, I believe. So, of course, fatigue is taking place because they have not been getting an aperture to come out. They are not spilling out of their homes to play with their peers. They are not looking at the people outside in society with whom they could have felt much more secure. So screen is not providing those aspects for which they are getting bugged up. If those aspects are also provided in the form of a very creative approach, as you all have been trying, I think India has been striving for competing with the global improvement of digitalization. Right. And that time we did not think that our screen time would be increased, because we wanted this country to be digitalized. Somehow or the other, in due course of time, this is likely to take place. And of course, I would emphasize upon one very important aspect, that nothing can replace the chalk and tar so far as the teaching is concerned. But with this emphasis, we all must realize that a screen is the only resource today through which probably the children would be there associated with their teaching learning curves. And if you wanted this learning curve to go high, not to be flattened, then this has to be continued. So my perspective would be there to ensure that the screen time, which has increased now for the lives of the children, should be made more creative, should be made more lucrative for them to be stuck up with that. There are various other ways that the pediatrician and the neonatologist and other group of doctors would suggest to the parents how to keep your child basically engaged with the screen and not being affected as well. So we can seek such advices from the society somehow or the other, but screen fatigue that we talk about basically is not because of attending the classes, but beyond the classes also there are a lot many things that they are engaged with, unfortunately, in absence of all those activities that they were doing earlier. So post-COVID rather, I think once again, there will be a challenge coming up when children would be there relaxed, not going to school, and would be saying that, well, we can go for online today and tomorrow we will come for the offline. This situation will arise, I'm telling you, and there will be a great gap between the two situations. One, that the confinement, which has brought a lot more of dissatisfaction and a lot more of basically, you can say the children have now accommodated with that. The moment this situation ends up and the normalcy creeps in, they would have their own choices in their hands. That challenge, how would we, coping with? That is what we have to plan out. Screen fatigue indeed is taking place. We all know the impacts of sticking to the screen for a longer time. Eyes are being impacted to a large extent. Children are having their brain being impacted. But all these things that are taking place, these all can be basically overcome with certain regulations and a kind of suggestions that we can get from other resources to make the things beautiful. So I believe that from this platform, we must throw a message to the viewers that we should not be worried about many things. We remember the Pavlov's theory of, the dog who was there basically brought for that situation that when the bell rang, the saliva started coming out of his mouth. So this situation is there even existing today in the human life. We are to be conditioned with many things, and we need to understand that this is the scenario and this is where we have to make our immunity a little better to cope with this situation. So fatigue would be there. By all means, we have to find out a way to come out of this. And that's all I believe we all must strive for. Yes, Subhayu.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Vasudevan, if I may come to you next. First of all, sir, we are extremely jealous of you because you are covered in thermals, whereas we are sweating it out in Kolkata. But, sir, my question to you, sir. Ooty is known to be a place that's, has somehow maintained a lot of the older formats of teaching. The big sprawling campuses over the hillside, the old buildings, and then you suddenly get thrust into this pandemic situation where everything goes online. How has your experience with screen fatigue been, sir?
Good evening, all. So how big an issue is screen fatigue for students? Having given to understand from the previous speakers, renowned speakers, they really threw light upon the topic already. Much screen time or screen fatigue or digital fatigue may lead to sleep deprivation, making it hard for students to sleep at night, increasing the risk of attention problems, anxiety and depression among students, increased risk of obesity, physical strain to the eyes and body, loss of cognitive ability, impaired socializing skills, weakened emotional judgment, delayed learning in young children, and so on. I think it is safe always to say that screen fatigue is a serious condition that should not be treated lightly. That too, when it can significantly change the outcomes of the learning process as a whole or for each individual at a personal level, screen fatigue can be very much disruptive both on an interpersonal and intrapersonal level for students. Screen fatigue is also responsible for the lack of or inability to focus, thus lowering academic performance and knowledge retention levels. So this condition, when combined with anxiety and stress, can lead to kind of disengagement, self-isolation, and poor social skills. So given that there is no doubt screen fatigue is a serious condition, and it is high time it is addressed rightly by people like Sinha sir, madam, madam who spoke earlier and all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vasudevan. Once again, I can see that people are joining back. My sincere apologies once again. I think, yes, the screen got fatigued of us, or this is just technology's way of protesting against people finding out about its evils. Mr. Vasudevan, I will come back to something that Mr. Sinha said earlier, that a lot of other factors are responsible. If I just look at the screen time as one parameter, right? You watch a series, you watch an episode of Friends, that's 35 minutes. You play a game of Candy Crush, that's an hour and a half. You have chatted with a few friends on Google Duo, and that's another hour, right? And the total of it is definitely more than the time that people are spending on online classes. Yet, you talk to a parent about their child being terribly tired, and the immediate answer is, all the classes today are online, so the children are really tired. Do you think this is becoming a stock excuse, or is it true that because learning has moved online that this fatigue has suddenly increased?
Yes, we couldn't deny the fact that students or like anybody, adults these days, they have got access to mobile phones and gadgets and on and internet instantly. It will not be fair to blame only learning, e-learning for this fatigue. But at the same time, we should also understand the impact of e-learning that significantly leads to screen fatigue. So there are differences. So when I see a film or like when I watch a movie over phone, like I'm relaxed. But at the same time, like when I had to interact with you over phone for a webinar, there is something, like I had to work extra. So this happens for a child for about 4-5 hours in a day. So imagine, like sitting in front of the screen for 4-5 hours where he is being constantly watched by a teacher or his friends. See, he has to react obviously for that. He doesn't have his personal or privacy time where he can be free and all. So our bodies are actually not made to function in a seated position for long hours. Sedentary routine would also trigger posture and movement issues, vision problems, and even digestive dysfunctionality. Let us kind of try to understand it this way. We have been experiencing this new normal or new reality in various ways. So teachers and students around the globe have tried their best to move education online. So there is no doubt about it. Institutions, teachers, students, parents, and almost all stakeholders were eager and also very diligent, and everyone got involved in this transition. So this transition and change happened almost overnight. So mark my words, it happened almost overnight, and we should remember that we were mostly unprepared for such a scenario. We were not prepared, though the shift took place. So digital fatigue or screen fatigue is now a new phenomenon that has emerged in the education system. So the abrupt shift from physical face-to-face learning to online teaching learning has left teachers and students trying or struggling to adjust. So experts or doctors or specialists or psychologists have already recognized the screen fatigue as a concerning condition with significant physical and psychological impacts both on teachers and students. So screen fatigue related issues are comparatively more with the e-learning system with a few of the following conditions. Imagine conditions like connectivity issues. Now we had connectivity issues, like you had to run here, come back. Apologies, sincere apologies to all the participants, and then we had to set things right. So you were in a hurry, so that thing happened. So lower resolution screens. Sometimes screen might not be much visible. Resolution screens. Poor sound quality, where I had to be very attentive, listening to what is being told. So those things will not happen with the movie or like with the Candy Crush or with the WhatsApp text. So focusing on unclear images or documents, being afraid when the teacher would question me, what is that she is going to ask me today, where everyone is watching me, how am I going to answer that? The feeling of intrusiveness, like that they are being watched throughout. So even the need for constant engagement, they had to be engaged constantly. Teachers do have that feel of making children being engaged. The children too wanted to be engaged constantly. Too many visual and audio stimuli. So difficulty in setting time and space boundaries. So time, space boundaries and all those things. You have to finish the session on time, start it on time. So difficulty in setting time and space boundaries. Spending hours on end in front of low resolution screens doubled by poor sound quality amplifies the feeling of screen fatigue, actually amplifies. So everyone, whosoever may be, experiences a sense of intrusion, especially when the camera is on. So when you ask students to switch on the camera, so we do have that intrusion kind of feeling. So you are exposed 100% when the camera is on. So particularly for students, at any given time in a physical class, a student is seen for about 15 to 25% of their peers. I mean, peers watch them only for about 15 to 25%. But online, whether it is real or not, so it might be unreal, there is this feeling of being watched uninterruptedly. Such experience among students may definitely take a toll on their mental health because of the need of their personal space and privacy. So moreover, from the tendency to limit screen time for children, in particular, we actually wanted to limit the screen time for children. We have reached the need to spend enormous amounts of time in front of screens. Maybe mobile phone, laptops, desktops, whatever it is. So with the multitude of resources and formats that take time to adjust, and given their assignments, projects, and homeworks, there is screen fatigue generated by too many visual and audio stimuli. Lack of guidance and inability among students to assign time limits and keep them when it comes to preparing and creating assignments or content. These are also to be considered as one of the main reasons for screen fatigue. So thus, in my opinion, e-learning, if not to be blamed, undoubtedly is also one of the major reasons for screen fatigue among students. Thank you, Suvai.
Thank you so much, sir. Very interesting take that, right? The increased intensity and the invasion of privacy, two factors in e-learning. In fact, the amount of time our webcam is on a daily basis now, it's almost like George Orwell's 1984. Mrs. Nair, if I may come to you, ma'am, would you say that this is a balanced argument, or do you think children are still spending a lot more time on other things and e-learning is unnecessarily taking the brunt?
Can you be a little louder? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, ma'am. I was just saying that a lot of cases of screen fatigue that parents are referring to is a sum total of the time that the child is spending in front of the screen from a lot of other sources as well. E-learning is perhaps 20-25% of the entire pie. A lot of time is spent on games, WhatsApp, and other things. But as sir said, that the intensity of e-learning is much higher than watching a movie. Do you think that's a balanced argument?
See, let me first tell you that every morning from Monday to Saturday, I switch on my system, my laptop, my mobile, and my iPad. All the three systems together, leaving my official phone. Three devices are switched on every morning at 8:30, and I only shut them down in the evening around 8:30, 9 o'clock. Until 2 p.m., I am right, sitting in front of these devices all the time because I am mentoring 18 schools of the country. And I get a timetable every month, and I'm supposed to observe these online classes and send a report to the respective schools. Now, whether I'm observing Mount Literacy School, Ahmedabad, or Mount Literacy School, Indore, or Surat, or a small remote place like Sendhwa or Mahu, the common factor that I see is that there is a lot of passive learning that is happening. Of course, depending on the locations, the teachers are using different kinds of online platforms. They are using those Jamboards, whiteboards, IWBs, depending on their ability and their technical finesse, whatsoever it is. But end of the day, what I see is that those 40 minutes, either the child says, "Ma'am, मुझे सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है. Ma'am, मुझे दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है. Ma'am, your voice is not coming. Your voice is not coming." And then I will have to check in and say that you are inaudible, madam. So day in and day out for the past, from last year, I believe 1st of April, 2nd of April till today, the scenario has not changed much. Now, for a child of grade 1, maybe he spends 2 hours. For a grade 6, 7 child, he spends around 3 hours. Higher secondary students spend a little more time. But e-learning fatigue means that even after the e-learning is over, even after the classes are over, you tell me what other things are the kids doing? They finish their homework. See, even long question answers are done away with. With the new system of evaluation, there is more emphasis on MCQs. If you have gone through the new assessment pattern that has come in, the focus is more on MCQs. So other than the e-learning, other than these laptops and mobiles, what else is the child doing? He's not allowed to go out. There's so much of fear of contracting the disease. Those who have taken their vaccinations, even they are advised not to move out. आप फोन उठाते हो तो आपको सुनाई देता है कि बिना काम के घर से बाहर निकलना मत. So when we adults are told not to move out of our homes without any purpose, how do we allow our children to go out? So we don't even allow them to run errands for us. कि भैया जाके दूध ले आओ, bread ले आओ, 2 मिनट पड़ोसी के बच्चे से खेलो. We don't even allow them to do that. There's a lot of fear factor in the minds of the parents. Then if you look at home, now in a middle class setup, you may be living in a 2-bedroom house or in a 3-bedroom house. Okay. Now, if you're living in a joint family, there is a bedroom for your grandparents, there is a bedroom for yourself and for your kids. Other than these bedrooms and drawing rooms and washrooms and kitchen, where is the child going? Nowhere. So he finally finds refuge in these devices. So there is PUBG, then there are those online games that the child gets addicted to. And I have seen children, because I stay in a very, old society where I've seen 3 generations. And I see when my kids were small, the addictions were of different kind. The engagements are of different kind. And today the engagements are of a different kind. But if I see the kids now, even the mothers say, "Acha ja baith ke thodi der TV dekh le." They have nothing else to offer to their children. So it is the prime responsibility of the schools to offer some different kinds of engagements, some different kinds of solutions to these problems. And I, as a regional school director, and my other colleagues also, we offer a lot of solutions to our schools. And like we tell them that you need to balance some synchronous and asynchronous activities, We tell them that, yes, it is important to attend the online classes, but 40 minutes in one class, and after that another 2 hours, 3 hours. So they do get fatigued, and then we offer them a lot of options, lot of solutions to overcome this fatigue. At times it works, at times it doesn't even work. I don't say it works all the time. The novelty wears off after a week. Supposing this particular session, we advise them that, okay, you form a leader. Okay, there is a class leader. So this class leader is going to start the class. Then he will engage a group. The group will interact with the class leader. So there will be a lot of peer learning. This will go on for a couple of weeks. Again, the next week, then they find, then this novelty wears off. Then what else? Then in fact, I even advised some of my schools that sometimes your classes begin at 8:30 and children don't sleep early in the night. Even parents don't sleep, especially parents who have worked from home. Their kids, they also don't wake up early. Their kids also don't wake up early. And most of the time, the kids simply wash their faces. Sometimes they don't even brush their teeth and they just sit down. So I even advised the school principals, let them have their breakfast while the classes are on. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, because then there's a lot of indiscipline happening. When the breakfast is on, then you see there are a lot of distractions at home. There are parents walking in, walking out. There are a lot of sounds that are happening. If the child is allowed to speak, or the child wants to ask something, there is a lot of distraction that happens at home. His father is on the phone, his mother is probably talking. Sometimes we have students whose parents are working. We have students whose mothers are teachers. They are also conducting classes from home. So ultimately, I do not blame e-learning for the fatigue, but end of the day, the child doesn't have, a recourse, an alternative other than these devices. These devices have become like a part and parcel of his daily life. वो screens पे से हटता है तो phone पे चला जाता है. And phone means some of the students don't even have laptops at home or desktops. So they are busy with their phones only. Once the classes are over, They go back to their, beds. And I've realized that they don't sit. Our students don't sit beyond 3 to 4 hours in a day. Most of the times they are in their bedrooms. They're just lying on their beds. Sometimes they're even, if their screens are, if their videos are off, they're caught unaware, sometimes, sprawling on their beds also. So all these things has affected their health, their mental health, their physical health, no matter what gyan you give them. Every weekend we have a session with our students, we motivate them, we give them so much of, information related to health. We tell them कि तुम लोग सारा दिन खाओगे, पियोगे, बैठे रहोगे, these health issues will creep in. No matter what you tell them, but they have thrown caution to the winds and they are all fed up, fatigued. What Mr. Sinha said that yes, once we open the schools, there is a possibility that for a couple of days they might enjoy, for a couple of weeks they might enjoy, and then they might want to go back to the online classes because they've got so used to having, this laid back time and laid back attitude. But nevertheless, if it was a marathon task, conducting the online classes, once again, it's going to be a marathon task, bringing them back to their classroom. And most importantly, that I have seen is that we will have to bridge the learning gaps. Do you think online learning has, managed to settle all kinds of solutions or give, solutions to all kinds of problems? Not at all. Currently, the learning is hardly 10% of what it should be. There are a lot of learning gaps. And once the children are back to the classes, the teachers are going to take a lot of time to bridge this learning gap. So I once again reiterate the fact that yes, there is an e-learning fatigue, not just because of the online classes, but because I reiterate the statement that they have nothing to go back to once these classes are over. No motivation, no internal motivation, no external motivation, nothing. So they are back to their devices once again. And that probably increases the fatigue all the more. हाँ ऐसा होता कि online learning के बाद they would all go out and play for 2 hours, then I would say yes, the fatigue is not there. But the fatigue is there because they have nothing else to do other than going back to their devices. This statement I reiterate. Thank you so much, Mr. Subay.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Sinha, sir, if I may come to you, this whole thing came from a statement that you made. Does it hold as true for the younger lot, the kids who are perhaps starting off their entire journey into education through online, people who have been admitted in the last couple of years?
Well, once again, Suvayu, coming back to the same point that e-learning has an impact. I would say that there are 3 kinds of reading: reading for pleasure, reading to induce sleep, and reading to prepare for the examinations. Now, what's happening in e-learning is that the teaching learning process is forcing the children to prepare for examinations. Had that been converted into the teaching learning for pleasure, probably that could not have resulted into this kind of discussions and arguments on the screen impact on the child's mind. What you asked as a question was that how the smaller kids would be affected with that. See, one thing is very clear that, and it's a glaring fact rather, the social and emotional learning at home has to be ensured with a structured note of removing the unpredictability and security. I mean, non-secure state of affairs. This is very important for the smaller kids. Now, what I would suggest to the educational institutions and the parents, that in such situations when the children are, coming on screen to learn something at that stage, when the children are there from the stage of 3 years to 6 years rather, they are the preschoolers. Try to find out the taste and the interest that the children do have. Integrate that taste and those kinds of stimuli, as Mr. Yeshwanth has very, very profoundly noted it. That stimuli is too much. If the stimuli turns out to become the tasteful stimuli for the people, probably, then they would not go for the same stimuli further on the screen. Suppose if Chota Bheem is integrated with the learning, then they will not go for Chota Bheem in their pastime rather, or in their leisure time. So the screen time automatically will be decreased rather. It is our intelligent approach through which we can once again make this teaching learning process and pedagogy easily accessible to the children. Provided a very good, what you call a combination of thoughts is being, again propounded. So the parents have to be there in consonance with the teacher's profile, and teachers do have to understand the parents, and parents have to understand the child's perspective and they have to share it with the teachers, so as the integrated form of learning paradigms can be established. So small kids certainly have been affected largely rather on account of their, force that have been applied to be sticking up to the screen and learning one or the other concepts that the teachers are trying to pour in. But yes, I have seen, and I am an eyewitness of a few teachers, few schools, wherein we find that they make the children dance on the screen, they make the children run on the screen, they make the children, do all those activities that in actual classrooms they used to do. So even on a virtual platform, if the things are charted out precisely, the children would never be there affected with this screen timing, and fatigue would always be not a problem as such. Another aspect that I would tell you, that a very good suggestions that I would like the parents also to basically listen to it and try to follow it at home, especially those young parents who have got the children up to the age of 6 years. Why not you convert the entire living room into a sports room for them? See, I mean, it is very important. At one point of time, the children are there sticking to the screen. But at the same time, simultaneously, if they have got a small play area in the living room itself, probably all those, the things which are cropping up would never be coming as a challenge to us. So a small and well thought integrated approach to teaching learning is required in today's scenario. And then I am a very positive thinker. I do not think negatively about this impact of the screen on the minds of the children, and I do not fall into an argument to prove that, well, this can be done or this cannot be done. But a humble suggestion is there to be put across the viewers, that all of us can have a solution to a challenge that we have all with us. Well, it is impacting, there's no doubt about it, but without any argument and without going against the viewpoints of others, I have to say that with a very positive approach of thinking more about their social and emotional security at home, this group of learners, especially who are yet not prepared for the mainstream education, they can be, conditioned for the purpose. The screen would never be a task for them. Rather, it would be a kind of enjoyment and pleasure for them. So reading for pleasure has to be brought into force instead of reading for the preparations of examinations. The threat comes on the screen only when we start sending the worksheets, when we start, sending a set of questions, and we wanted it to be, solved on the Google Doc and send it back once again in the form of a scanned copy to the mobile. Threat comes from there. Children do get fatigued out of that, not because you are teaching and not because they are sticking to a screen for 40 minutes with a gap of 10 minutes. So even if they have got 6 periods of 40 minutes each with a gap of 10 minutes, I believe they would be enjoying it thoroughly if we minimize the load and rationalize the teaching learning process to a large extent. As Madam Neeru has just now referred to, CBSE has come out with a very specific scheme of evaluation when they say that 50% syllabus in 9th and 10th especially has to be covered up in the window time of November, December, when the first term exam will be conducted, and the set of questions would be there absolutely MCQ. Now another 50% in the second term that's likely to be taking place in the month of February, March. Again, it has to go with the subjectivity, wherein very short answer type questions, short answer type questions, long answer type questions, very long answer type questions will be asked over that. Simultaneously, CBSE has advised that we should have 3 periodic tests compulsorily. Now you implement these 3 periodic tests with an ease rather. allow the children to enjoy these testing system with a comprehensive value. Evaluation and continuity with a comprehensive value is what is the dire need of the time. So when I believe that if all of us start contemplating on this to a large extent, these kinds of problems would be sorted out. I believe that my fellow friends who are there on the panel would agree to what I have been saying. And at the helm of the affairs, all of us can make this possible, talking to our colleagues and spreading it thoroughly in this country. Yes, Subhai. That's what I just wish to contribute. Yes.
Wonderful, sir. I think I'll 100% agree to that. That screen or no screen, exams have always been a source of fatigue. I can vouch for that throughout my life. And if I may, sir, take a point from your idea of converting the living room to a playroom. My parents, when I was growing up, always had all the paintings of the Italian masters on their walls, because if I would take a crayon and convert all the walls into my canvas. So yes, that could be a good way as well, as long as you can paint them over again. My last question, and Mr. Sinha, I'll start with you on this one. Let's look at the other end of the screen fatigue. For a 40-minute class that a student attends, a student puts in 2.5 hours of preparation or more. What about the screen fatigue for teachers in that case?
Well, from a teacher's perspective, once again, Subhayu, I have to say hats off to them, because they are into this business for the last 2 years, of course, and their privacy has been impacted to a large extent. Their home has turned out to become a wrestling room, rather, I would say, because they wrestle for so many things at the same time. Rather, they mute and they keep on the control on the learners who are attending their classes. Indeed, conducting 6 periods of 40 minutes each, rather in a continuity with a break of maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, is a very hectic task for them. Not only that, the myriads of expectations are there attached with that, because the teacher has to be connected with all sort of syllabus, all sort of split up, all sort of subject related problems, and then she has to bring it in a platter of fruits. Rather, it has to be brought in such a way that children do access to that and then do get it, imbibe it in the right perspective. So while doing that, teachers are definitely getting fatigued out of it. But then I would say one thing has taken place. Earlier, there was a transit time in the school, which the bell was going on. The first period to 6th period, continuous periods were there for the teachers to move from one class to the another class, or maybe a break of one lunch period, rather. 3 periods in continuity, a break, and another 3 periods, another 4 periods at the end of the day, right? Now, there was a transition phase of just 5 minutes, or not even that. So within 3 minutes, she had to switch over from class 8A to class 9B, rather. And the subject could have remained the same, or maybe if the multiple subjects are there, basically given as the responsibilities to the teachers, those teachers were there miserably troubled by once again switching over from one state of affairs to the other state of affairs. That time also was a very stressful time for them. At least if you are here to switch off your video, you are relaxing like this, right? Children are not looking at you. You can relax, you can stretch your hands. This was not being done when the real classroom was going on. You had to exhibit your highly disciplined, gesture rather in front of and that kind of pretending values took away your lives all through. The teachers were fatigued that time also, physically more than that of what they are getting it now on the screen. I would suggest that teachers should also have a walking space in the room where she is sitting to conduct the classes. And after every 40 minutes, for 10 minutes, she should take a glass of water, she should walk around, she should look outside the window, as Achin has already basically suggested, a 20 minutes break from taking your eye out of your screen. I don't think there would be any fatigue coming up with it. Yes, one pressure that they all have been basically reeling under is that they are forced to prepare a lot more of activity-oriented worksheets, and they are all to be sent across through this electronic media to the children concerned. when the physical possibility is not there to be associated together and call the parents and hand it over to them, which earlier was basically possible. So this is another hectic task that they are all into. And again, I would suggest that if the teachers can frame it out properly and can discuss the things among their colleagues and make out a plan, a strategic plan, I think that needs a lot of skills and a lot of thought process. Things will always be there under the control, and they would also be accustomed. I'm telling you, if the schools do not deduct their salary, they would love to conduct classes from home all the time. Since the school has made it very clear, the promoters say that, well, half the salary will be paid if you are there online and full salary will be paid if you are coming offline. That will be another, charm for them. If the school say that we pay you 75,000 or maybe 75% of your total salary, you stay at home and conduct. I'm telling you, by all means, they would love to be there at home and conduct classes. Because at least 10 minutes are there to pamper other people in the house itself by switching off your screen at the same time, which you are not getting for 8 hours being at school. Yeshwanth is laughing at that. I believe that is the scenario. So let us all think about it precisely, that you have got a lot more of solutions to all the problems. Problems do not come without solutions. And these things that we talk about would always be there for one or the other reasons. Today, the crisis has come up because of COVID-19, and the screen is being talked about in the form of fatigue. Tomorrow, without fatigue also, the screen would survive and exist rather. In the yesteryears, we used to connect our electricity to watch the black and white TV and the full screen of Ramayana for more than an hour's time, the entire series. Right. I'm talking about way back when we go back to 1987, 88, when the very early time when the TV was not even color TV in the market. For that purpose, the electricity did not reach to our villages as well. So we used to take a bamboo in our stick to connect the electricity from one wire and then get the electricity in our home to watch that screen. So a screen was rather, I would say, much of entertainment, which has now turned out to become, I agree with Yeshwanth when he said that a lot more of what you call focused learning is there on the screen, and a lot more of expectations from the children, what Madam Neeru also has emphasized upon, and that would certainly increase the quantum of fatigue for the teachers as well as for the students. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add here, one good thing has come out. What I have seen in the last 18 months, or rather 16 months. Earlier, when I used to visit my schools to observe the teachers, sometimes if I would catch them off guard, some of them would be entering the classrooms and then opening their textbook to decide what they are going to teach for the day. Many a times I would, call them in person, in private, and tell them that you're supposed to be prepared when you go to your classroom. You're not supposed to flip the pages and check or ask the children, what did we do yesterday? Okay, what did I teach you? All those kind of questions. Instead of that, spend some time on recapitulating what you have done, asking questions. But now what I have seen is that since these teachers are in the limelight all the time, there are parents at home, grandparents at home, sometimes guests at home who are watching them at close quarters all the time. These teachers who started by fits and starts have now become pros at delivering these online classes. They come all prepared. They are even their language has improved to a certain extent. Earlier, those CCTVs were there, and probably the principal would, watch them from her cabin or from her chamber, or the IT person would do it. Now there are parents sitting at home who communicate, in the Queen's language much better than what the teacher is, able to do. And the teachers have also realized their weaknesses and strengths, and this has in turn motivated them and inspired them to do better. Because what I observed last year in the month of April, May, June, and what I'm observing now, the same teachers are doing a wonderful job. Secondly, there has been a spate and a plethora of online training sessions that have, emerged, sprouted in every nook and corner. So now the teacher has access to so much of online learning, training that is happening. She wants to learn something. There are so many platforms that are giving her free coaching, free training. Even our company is, giving a training on a daily basis, and different varieties of subjects. So what has happened is, though there is a screen fatigue or whatever it is, but end of the day, I would say that our teachers have become smarter in terms of teaching, in terms of communicating, in terms of coming online. Even their sense of dressing has improved considerably. Earlier, parents did not know what they wear and come, how they speak, how they talk. Now, even if they have to scold a child or run down a child, they are so cautious. I'll give you a demo. If the child says, "Ma'am, I'm not able to hear you," instead of, or I did not listen what you said or did not understand what you said, she will very politely say, "Okay, beta, मैं फिर से बताती हूँ, please listen." Unlike the classroom where she would say, "Kya kar rahe ho? What were you doing? Weren't you paying attention?" So all these things, I have noted that the teachers have become more sophisticated, and their classroom management skills have improved, and there's so much of patience. In a class of 40 minutes, 1,000 times they will say, "Acha beta, abhi batati hu." To the little ones, they'll keep on doing beta beta all the time. And these same teachers would be at loggerheads with their kids in the classroom. So if you look at the other side, there are a lot of good things also that have happened in these online classes. And I enjoy these sessions from morning 8:30, 9 o'clock till 2 p.m. every day. And I must tell you, if I were to share experiences with you, I would, ending up writing a big book on it. And it would turn out to be a bestseller. The way these teachers, the teacher A, what she did in the classroom 2 years back, how she started off last year, and what she is today. I could give a graphical analysis of her growth as a teacher, 2018, 19, 20, and 21. If I don't see beyond that, just 4 years. So these are some of the good things that have happened with in India. And yes, they have to work. I mean, they have to do a lot of preparation. They have to read and come. They have to be well prepared. And this is something that I admire, in the teachers, that yes, no matter 20% salary, 50%, 75, whatever it is, but when they are in the classrooms, they're giving their best shot. That is what I've noticed. Probably the reason that they are being watched and they are all at home and they are being paid for whatever, good, bad reasons, they are paid, whatever truncated salaries they are taking at home, but they are even thankful to their, trustees and to their owners that they are being paid, because there are many schools and there are many organizations where people are being laid off. So at least in these times, the teachers are, given their due, even if it is not fully, but at least partially. And in our setup, most of our schools are paying at least 80% salaries to our teachers. So we are not facing that problem so much as probably the other schools that have, the revenue collection is poor, or whether schools are new. So this is, of course, a different topic altogether for discussion. But yes, the teachers have come a long way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. One of the biggest learnings that I have had on all of these 119 episodes is our country has done a disservice in not recognizing the kind of work teachers have done during this pandemic. Taking nothing away from the work that doctors have done, taking nothing away from nursing staff, I think teachers are right up there as COVID warriors, given the kind of efforts that they have put in. Mr. Vasudevan, sir, I'll come to you, same question, but sir, particularly for teachers with a lot of experience, PowerPoint and Zoom and Meet has been new and therefore stressful to a lot of them. So how have you tried to mitigate that situation? Sir, you're on mute.
I would like to back Sinha sir and Neeru ma'am on that. Beautifully said. I really feel elated for having been a teacher after listening to these great people. Firstly, we should understand teachers couldn't step away from it. As what Sinha sir said, fatigue is indispensable for teachers, whether online or offline. So teachers have to come across that. In fact, teachers are the people like who sit for more hours in front of the screen than students. Teachers actually feel pressured to fill every second of the online class. See, unlike a physical class, here they have to fill in every second of the online class. Especially, this is caused by the, discomfort created by the silence in the classes. So immediately they had to call up a student. They'll have to ask a question whether they understood or not. So they'll have to individually check on each and every student whether they understood it or not. So there is a requirement to keep everyone engaged at all times during all periods, leading to fatigue. So this basically leads to fatigue. As what Neeru ma'am said, teachers have gradually improved themselves a lot with their communication skills, maybe upgrading their subject knowledge, questioning students, communicating with students, knowing that parents would be near them, appreciating them. Most of the time, during online classes, I can find teachers have stopped scolding or threatening students. So all is appreciation, all is win-win policies happening there. Given their enormous workload, with additionally checking for attendance, you see correcting assignments, preparing notes, and all these things going digital, screen fatigue is definitely indispensable to teachers. To mitigate the very screen fatigue, teachers shall be educated. And also, after being educated, let them educate others to recognize the signs of screen fatigue early on or during the initial stages. So I think Sinha sir will be able to throw good light upon that. This way, we can at least reverse the consequences or at least limit its damage, of the screen fatigue. Getting enough sleep by strictly adhering to sleeping routine. All these are kind of personal lifestyle changes they have to indulge in. Indulging in physical activities like practicing yoga, doing exercises, taking frequent breaks. Not only taking breaks, like what Sinha said, they can sit relaxed. Also managing their break times effectively, ensuring minimum physical activity for at least fetching water, having water, being hydrated, or sipping a coffee. So standing up from there, pushing themselves out of their chairs or couch or bed or whatever it is, coming out, standing up, doing some exercise. So getting their vision screening test, especially CVR, CVS is what we have been speaking about. So vision screening test at regular intervals can be a few measures taken by teachers. Digital detoxing can be introduced and designed in a way for teachers to overcome this screen fatigue. Changes are required from routine. See, usually what you do, we be doing the same thing. We go sit in front of the laptop or mobile phone or desktop. We do have the same set of textbooks or resources, collect it, keep it on the table, watch out for the class, timetable and all those things, log in, check out how many students have come, attendance and all those things. Everything is routine. So changes are required from this routine. Instead of being in front of the screen and staring at it all day, they need to change the routine. They need a change from what they are seeing, what they are listening, what they are touching, at least during their breaks and holidays. So they'll have to plan their breaks and holidays in such a way that they do change over from the daily routine. So there is every possibility that these teachers have gone virtually mad. I understand. Though we had to appreciate teachers a lot, hats off to teachers, but the reality is that these teachers these days have gone virtually mad because everything is visual and virtual for them. These visual and virtual things have revolutionized their lives. They should also focus on other aspects like correcting their screen brightness. So there should be some awareness on correcting their screen brightness, and most of the schools are doing that. They had been kind of giving them intensive coaching where teachers are being prepared on how to go about online classes, what to be done, what not to be done, how to take care of themselves. So most of the schools are doing that, but still teachers should be aware of that. So wearing glasses if they wear to without fail, slightly changing over to other formats and modes where all possible, as not everything need to be on video. Setting up their workspace properly, like what Sinha sir said, opening their windows to get some fresh air, welcoming in sunlight, minimizing other screen times like television. So once they sit in front of laptop or mobile phone for about 8-9 hours a day, so they can at least minimize the other screen times like television. So the other option is that the other suggestion is that they can use they can start using manual calendars instead of, again, like using Google Calendar, checking out their dates, schedules, and all those things. They can use manual calendar, bulletin journals, instead of to-do list. Like usually we have apps where we do have to-do list and all those things. Instead, teachers can use such kind of things, especially for preparing their content and taking notes. Like they can rely on textbooks and hard copies as far as possible to prepare content, take down notes. So like what Sinha said, like they have to keep them hydrated all day. And above all, I would like to stress upon this point is that they need to be kind to themselves. Teachers especially need to be kind to themselves. So to conclude, I would say all this change and the unknowns of this pandemic are very stressful. If you are struggling to focus on work or school, know that that is natural when stress levels are very high. So be very kind to yourself and others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Sinha sir, Neeru ma'am, and Vasudevan sir. Thank you so much for making the time and being here today. It was a fantastic discussion. Unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we'll have to cut it short, but I wish we could go on longer. Achin is here, the man who was brave enough to be the founder of an edtech product and then initiate a discussion on screen fatigue. So let me just invite him back to do the official vote of thanks. Achin, over to you.
Really wonderful session we had, and the best part of it was, the holistic 360-degree perspective. So that really reflected the maturity of the panel. And I'm sure our esteemed educators today here, as part of the audience also, have some great takeaways from the session. Really, really wonderful. Burrett sir, thank you as always for initiating the discussion, for setting the tone for the evening, and for some very insightful points actually, which later on also other panelists also deliberated on. Neeru ma'am, I think some wonderful points you made, of course, and some of this really stays with us. The fact that how you have seen this entire evolution over the last 1.5 to 2 years during pandemic, with regard to teachers growing in confidence with regard to virtual mode of education, and how it has actually done a world of good to be it in terms of their class preparation, in terms of how they're carrying themselves. It's really wonderful. Must appreciate their effort and gesture. Also, I think the other point that you mentioned is really thought-provoking, ma'am, and I think it's very practical as well. The fact that lack of activity and the reason for it, the fact that yes, today in nuclear families, children staying 2 BHK or 3 BHKs, in many cases, and with other family members, etc., have really little space for themselves. And at times, yes, device is the only refuge. So while we discuss about limiting screen time and we discuss about screen fatigue, we really need to take a look and a little bit of a self-introspection and understand what other alternatives we are offering them. And I'm not discussing only about the situation that we're facing today. Maybe in pre-pandemic or even maybe post that, we really need to explore this, that how to ensure that our children really get to enjoy outdoors, spend more time outside in fresh air, rather than always being glued to the screen. So I think really some wonderful thought-provoking points. And also, ma'am, what you mentioned, I completely agree with you that it was indeed a marathon task to ensure that yes, although schools are closed, schooling should be on, and teachers and children, they're actually able to use online platform. And again, it will be a marathon task to try and ensure that children go back to school. But I'm sure esteemed educators will be very successful at that, as always. Sinha sir, thank you so much for being a part of this gathering today, and some very honest and practical perspectives you shared with us, sir, which I really found wonderful. Some of them, I think, you stressed on social and emotional learning a lot, and that's something that all of us completely agree with you. Yes, indeed, it is important. The approach is very important, and I think one very practical suggestion that you offered, converting the living area to a playroom for kids. Yes, of course, today, and also maybe taking a small break, walking around. So these are aspects which are small aspects, but very important. So thank you for sharing your perspective on that, sir. Vasudevan, sir, I first of all, great to know about the lovely weather at Ooty, the fact that it's raining from morning, and really, I thank you for taking the effort to join from your mobile and give and share your perspective. I think one aspect that you shared with us, the comparison between watching a movie and attending an online class, maybe, or sessions one after the other for 6-7 hours a day. That feeling of inclusiveness, that's very practical, very insightful, and very correct. In fact, the feeling of being monitored, the feeling of being continuously watched, whether you are being watched or not, it's the second thing. But that whole feeling, I think that's something from the perspective of any human being, and both perspectives, be it from the perspective of the educator or from the perspective of the student, indeed, at times is stressful, undoubtedly. And also, I think personal lifestyle changes that you advocated are indeed very important. So overall, of course, we had a great session today. I apologize for the tech glitch that we had, because of which many of our members of our esteemed audience who dropped off later point of time, maybe most of them already joined back, but I'm sure some of them missed it. These recordings will be up in YouTube, and I'm sure that they'll get the opportunity to come back and watch lovely discussion and thoughts that our panelists shared today. I thank all of you for being a part of this. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you, and good evening to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.